Hey friends, how are you? I am Leighellen, and this is Mama Leighlen's Book Nook. Thanks so much for joining me today. I am starting a new series here called Book Mail Monday. So thank you to everyone that is joining me from Bookstagram. Welcome, welcome. I love having you here. But basically, every Monday on Bookstagram, I share the new books I got this week. And, Bookstagram isn't a very long-winded space. You can have this little snippet of time where you can share, and it's very hard to really give long descriptions of books. And so that's what we're doing today. So I'm going to share with you the books that I got this week and give you little backgrounds and descriptions on them, and also share, if I've already read them, what I really liked about them, so you can put them on your radar. Because a lot of times we get sent books months in advance, and so you need to know what to add to your TBR. So thank you for joining me today. So let's dive right in, shall we? All right, first up is The Fallen Woman's Daughter. This is by Michelle Cox. I feel like I should have it on that side because this is kind of in the way. This is historical mystery. She actually is the author of this series called Henrietta and Inspector Howard that I really enjoyed. And this is supposed to be a look at like 3 generations of women. It's this woman who has 2 daughters. So it's mother-daughter relationship and it's sister relationship. And so it looks at those complexities. It's got a big chunk of time. It starts in like the 1920s and goes all the way through the 1960s. So the story actually starts with the mom who gets pregnant and has another child, and both these daughters end up going to a girls' school. And then you get the daughters' perspectives. And then there's another generation. The grandmother comes along and cares for her granddaughters. So a lot of perspectives and a lot of information. This author, Michelle, is awesome. So don't forget to read the author's notes at the end if you pick this one up, because she worked in a nursing home. And this is actually based on one of her patients' real life stories. So kind of fun. So check this one out. It comes out March 5th. Where am I going to put my stack for you? I guess over here. All right. So next up, I received this book called Committed. Committed is a memoir, and it is Susan Scanlon's story. It is based off of her. It's initially based off of when she was in college. She actually ended up attempting to commit suicide. And back then, they would put you in a mental institution. So she was actually in an institution for like 3 years. And when she was released, she started doing some research and found out, of course, if you read historical fiction, this is actually something that we did to women a lot all throughout history. You could be considered crazy just for not agreeing with your husband. You could, back during Salem witch trials, be considered a witch just for practicing herbal medicine or whatever. So it's not something new, but it was new to her. And the more research she did, the more she realized, like, wow, women, this kind of happens, that we get called crazy or mad when maybe we are just sad. So it turns out for this particular woman, her mother died when she was young. And so she was dealing with a lot of grief that she had never dealt with. And so this is a look at that, and an inside look at mental health, an inside look at negotiating therapy and medicine and what that looks like. So check this out. This one comes out April 16th. So give that one a look. Next up, 1974. Fabulous year, the year I was born. Now you know how old I am. 1974, Francine Prose. Francine is an artist and a writer. And this is another memoir. This is her memoir that details a time in her life when she was like in her 20s. And she ended up in this relationship with Tony Russo. And if you don't know who Tony Russo is, Google it. But he is the person who was basically like the leak for the Pentagon Papers. He was the leak for the Pentagon Papers. He worked with Daniel Ellsberg. So he was indicted and tried. And so this was a look at just that relationship. But then also, it's also like a historical look at the time when this all took place, 1974 was a very chaotic time. You've got Vietnam War, you've got women's lib, drugs were coming on the scene. And so she kind of conquers and discusses all of these topics. So check this out. This comes out June 18th from Harper. I guess I should be saying who these people are that sent these to me, so you know. This one was actually sent to me by the author, so thank you, author. And this one is, nope, wrong one. This one is from Vintage Books. And then this one is from Harper. I will try to promise to tell you that. All right, the next book I got is actually a book that I've already read. So one of the things I do on Bookstagram is giveaways. So this one will end up being a giveaway because it's an extra book that I have of this book. So you'll definitely want to go follow over on Bookstagram at Momma Leighellen's Book Nook because that's where I'll do all my giveaways. So it is called The Same Bright Stars, and I love this author. Ethan Joella is amazing. He always writes super hopeful stories. They're always about like regular people and the situations that they find themselves in. They're usually friendships, and they're usually, just unique situations. So in this one, The Same Bright Stars. This is from Ethan Joella from Scribner. This one follows this man who owns a restaurant, and it's been a restaurant that's been in his family for years, and he's not sure he wants to do it anymore, right? It's like, a hand-me-down business, and it takes all his time. If anyone has worked in the restaurant business, oh my gosh, it is brutal. And so the hours are crappy and the pay is crappy and it's intense, and holidays he doesn't get because he's working. And so at some point, this outside firm offers him a butt ton of money to take over. And so this story kind of follows that whole thing because I'm sure all of you know of some cute little small town that you love with some cute little local store that you have loved for ages that now is, a Starbucks or McDonald's or something. And so that's kind of what this looks like. This is, one man as he's grappling with this change. It's a look at an adorable small town and just the townspeople in it that kind of rally around him. There is also a little like drama in this one. So there's a person from his past that comes back while all of this is going on to kind of help inform him of his decision that tells him something that he did not know that is shocking. Shocking. So Ethan is the best. If you haven't read his other books, he wrote A Little Hope and he wrote A Quiet Life, and I gave both of those 5 stars, so you definitely want to give that a go. But this will be a great summer read. It comes out July 2nd, so be sure to check that one out. Thank you, Scribner Books, for that one. All right, what's next? This is so much more fun than Bookstagram because on Bookstagram I have to write like a quick little synopsis that's like 1 sentence long, and I can't really tell you that much about the book. So this is so much better. All right, let me turn up my volume because it looks like it's not very loud on here. I hope you can hear this. All right, welcome to Glorious Tuga. Welcome to Glorious Tuga. This sounds like a lot of fun. I haven't read this one yet, but I did a little research on it. It comes out July 2nd from Ecco Books. This author, Francesca Segal, is the winner of the Costa First Novel Award. And it sounds really fun. So it follows this veterinarian, and she's a research vet, which is like, so not the like warm fuzzy vet who like wants to take care of your dog, but like a research vet. So she is all about like statistics and tracking. And so she is really invested in the tortoise population on this small South Atlantic island. It's called the island of Tuga de Oro. And she ends up getting a fellowship there. So she moves from her, very formal life in London and goes to this super remote town on this island in the middle of nowhere. And when she gets there, she's thinking she's going to, research these turtles. But of course, she gets there in this village. They don't have a vet, right? And they have like dogs and they have donkeys and cows and cattle and goats. So they start bringing all of their animals to her, and she quickly, learns about the island and learns about the people. So it sounds really sweet. It's uplifting story, immersive story, I think it'll be a great summer read because it takes place in this lush tropical location, and then also just isolated in a remote. And so it's a look at being able to unplug and be where you are and try some new things. So this sounds like it's going to be one that's good for the soul. Welcome to Glorious Tuga, out July 2nd. Oh, this one. Okay, this is 1795. This is actually the third book in a long-standing series. Where are my other books? Okay, so it is the third book. The first book was 1793. Imagine that. And the second book was, guess, 1794. Okay, so there were already two other books. Can you see those? The Wolf and the Watchman, The City Between the Bridges. So it's a little hard to tell you about a third book if you haven't read the first two. So, but I'm going to do it because they sent it to me. So thank you, Atria Books, for this one. But it is, I would say, more mystery based. So if you like mysteries, this is a third book in a mystery historical trilogy. It follows a lawyer named Emile, and he is basically fixated on tracking this bad guy down. And he gets help from a buddy who is an one-armed army vet. And as they're trying to figure this out, one of their friends, Amy, gets kidnapped. And so then they spend the rest of the time looking for her. So it's history, it's mystery, it's action. I will say this one was slower than the other two. We were all excited about getting the finale. Sorry, but it was. So if you like these and you want closure, then get your closure on this third book. If you haven't started this series, start with 1793 first. But just know this one's a little slower than the other. Okay, next book I'm totally stoked about. I am going fast and I'm trying to, YouTube is much better than Bookstagram, but it still doesn't like long videos. So I'm sorry I'm talking so fast. Hopefully you can watch the replay. All right. Really excited for this next book. It is called Middletide. Part of why I'm excited, look at this gorgeous cover. But I live in Colorado right now, but I'm from the Pacific Northwest. And this takes place in the Pacific Northwest in essentially Port Orchard. They don't call it Port Orchard. They call it something very similar. Point Orchard. Port Orchard. But in this novel, this beautiful young doctor is found dead on the property of a mysterious reclusive writer. So as the police are investigating, originally they assume that it's a suicide, but turns out the way her death happened follows instances in one of his books. So then they start thinking maybe he did it. So it is very cool because it's one of those twisty turny whodunits. It's also very atmospheric. If you know anything about the Pacific Northwest, it is dark, it is wet, it is forested. So I think that plays a lot into this book. And then it's always fun when you have someone who you think did it but who maybe didn't. This is a great look at like small town, it's gossip, revenge. So I think, when does this come out? Not until June. So this comes out June 11th, but I think it's going to be a hit. It's also short, which I think for thrillers works for me. 300 pages is kind of my sweet spot. This one was 250 something. So I just thought it was really fun, really interesting, and atmospheric. And I'm really excited to get more from this author. So check this one out, June 11th from Atria Books. Sarah Crouch is the author. I don't think I said that, so be sure to check that out if you like kind of atmospheric thrillers. Okay, speaking of atmospheric thrillers, I need to take a drink. Speaking of atmospheric thrillers, this next one was wacky. Okay, this next one is also atmospheric, but like almost bizarro atmospheric. It's called No Road Home from John Fram. It comes out, when do you come out? it says July 23rd, but oh yeah, July 23rd. July 23rd. It is from Atria Books. Okay, so let me tell you what this one is about, because I love locked room mysteries, and it kind of has that vibe, but this was like messed up. So the gist is, you have this man who has a young son and he marries this woman. Well, the woman comes from a crazy family, essentially. She comes from um well, I shouldn't say crazy. Can you say crazy? She comes from a family of very fundamental Christian cultish people, and they live on a compound. And so he and his kid end up, after they get married, they go live on this compound. Well, funky stuff starts happening. And obviously, I don't know, it does take place in Texas. So it kind of gave me like those kind of vibes of like, the stuff that you heard that goes on in these like compounds, right? So, I can't really tell you what happens without telling you what happens. So just know there are triggers. If you would like to know what the triggers are, go to my bookstagram and you can read them, because I will post them there. Uh, because I don't want to say them here, because if you don't want to know, I feel like the trigger warnings can sometimes tell you what the book is about. So I don't really want to ruin the book for you. So if you feel like looking those up, head to my bookstagram and see the list. But essentially, there's something up with his son, and then the people don't like that, and so then they try to kill them, and a storm happens, and they're stuck in this house in the middle of nowhere on this compound with a killer on the loose. And so, if that's kind of your jam, that's what this book is. It's a little nutty, a little intense, kind of fun, but also like politically charged. So, it comes out July 23rd. The next book I'm so excited for. I haven't read it yet. I think it might end up being a Book Friends book club pick. So if you don't know, I host a book club on Bookstagram. It's called Book Friends Book Club. It is a historical fiction and literary fiction book club. And we read the books all month, chat about them on Discord at the end of the month, and then I bring on the author and we interview the author and chat with them, and then we post it here on YouTube. So I'm really excited for this one. So this one is called All We Were Promised. It is by Ashton Lattimore. I'm so excited for this one because I love historical fiction. I love Civil War time, and this is Civil War fiction. And then on top of it is an own voice author. So it's like hitting all my sweet spots. So here's the deal with this book. It is set in Philadelphia during the Civil War, and it follows three women that are totally different. So you have one woman who is from the South and is an escaped slave. So she left the South, went to the North, because back then you were promised, oh, you're in the North, now you're free. Well, she gets there and she basically has to hide and pass. So it's got passing in it, which is also an interesting concept that happened back in the day. And then there's another woman. So the first woman was Charlotte. She's the one who is the escaped slave. Then Nell is a wealthy Philadelphian, a wealthy Black woman in Philadelphia, and comes from this, abolitionist family. And then Evie is the third character, and she's still in the South and wants to be free. So it's got three women with three totally different backgrounds, and it tells their tale. So what I find interesting and what I'm really excited about this book to kind of go into is this whole concept of what we thought was freedom, right? Black people in the South were told, if you go north, you will be free, only to find out that when you get there, you're really not. And it depended on the place. And then it also depended on the rules. So there were these loopholes in history where if you were a slave owner from the South, you could go to the North and track down your slave and bring them back. So that's not really freedom. You're not living in much freedom there. So I'm really excited to kind of dive into that sentiment, dive into passing again, because some of my favorite books kind of went into that a little bit. Sadiqa Johnson had one that I really enjoyed, and it's just really fun to learn about and get this new history from an own voice perspective. So this comes out April 2nd from Ballantine Books. Ballantine is actually, I think, Penguin Random House. Or Random House. So, Ashton Lattimore. I'm so excited. So stay tuned, because I do think we will choose that for book club. And then the final one also sounds super fun. Kind of historical fiction, but kind of women's fiction. It sounds like it's kind of a mix. The Hazelbourne, I hope I'm saying that right. Hazelbourne Ladies Motorcycle and Flying Club by Helen Simonson, and it's from Dial Press. So this, I think, will be like escapist fun because even though it's still a historical fiction World War I book, it is really a fun narrative about friendship and the strength of the female spirit and women coming together to do things they didn't know they could. So the gist of it is that it starts with this one woman's story named Constance. I should say when it starts. So does it say the year in here? It's after World War One. So right after World War One, essentially to give you a little history, World War One, remember, like when the men went off to war and women started doing jobs that women didn't traditionally do, and they were good at them and they liked them. Well, then the men came back and the women were expected to go back to being, wives and teachers and nurses. And they were like, this is lame. I was really good at what I was doing. So that's the gist of this book. So in this book, you have this woman named Constance who's been running her family estate. But then after the war, the men come home, her mother dies, and she's expected to just become a governess. And she doesn't want to be a governess. Like they sit around and read. Like that's not what she wanted to do. She didn't want to go to tea parties and all that stuff. So she takes some time away to kind of think about what she can and is willing to do next. And she goes to like the British countryside. She's got a friend there, and she ends up making this unlikely friendship with what I'm assuming is probably this woman on the cover because she is a taxi driver and she runs a motorcycle club for women. So that in itself just sounds entertaining. So it's basically about these women. It's also a look at, a thoughtful, sharp look at class distinctions back then and economics of the time and just, women's lives back then. So that is the Hazelbourne Ladies Motorcycle and Flying Club, and it comes out May 7th. So there you go, friends. Those are all of these new fabulous, can I share them with you? Books that are coming your way in the next couple months. So hopefully you will join me next Monday when I share more.